Hi, welcome back to my channel, or hello if you're new here. My name is Andy. I'm an aspiring first-time author. If you're new here, I'm currently in the annotation phase. This is my printed first draft. I'm getting close to being done with it and heading into my rewriting of draft 2 and everything. I'm really excited to reach that phase. I'm kind of sick of annotation, to be honest with you, and excited to actually start making changes. Sorry if you are not new and you normally watch this channel that I was kind of MIA last week. It was a weird week for me mentally and also motivation-wise, but if you haven't already, I really hope that you will check out my live stream with Brielle. That was hosted over on her channel. Ton of fun, so make sure you go check that out. I will link it at the top of this video or in the description down below, so check that out if you haven't already. It was a ton of fun to hang out with Brielle and chit chat about our projects. We're kind of in a similar phase right now, and then also just answer questions and do a little live Q&A with you all. So I'm hoping to start doing my own live streams here soon, so please let me know if that's something that would be of interest to you guys. Thinking some classic writing sprints and just kind of Q&A sessions that are in between each sprint. So let me know if that's something that you guys would like to see on this channel. I wanted to sit down and have a proper chat about revision and what it can be like to read your own work for the first time. If you are like me and this is your first time going through the process of writing and completing a novel start to finish, then this is also probably your first time really investing time in your work and learning what it's like to critique yourself as a writer. Prior to this project, I've written countless other little things here and there, but never gotten to a point where I really had to look back and review my writing. So this is the first time I've ever really had to look at my writing, review it, find weak points, find strong points, and basically develop ideas that are not just beginning concepts. This is the first time I've ever had to think out ideas that are a whole concept for a book from start to finish. So that takes a lot of brain power, as you can imagine, and seasoned authors out there, I'm imagining that it must get a little bit better with time and repetition from each novel to the next, just kind of knowing your strong points as a creative thinker and your weak points and being able to work through those in other projects. So the first project is, I'm guessing, hoping, praying, the toughest. Okay, here's what I am realizing about revision as I go through the process. There's so many moments of self-doubt. I think when you're writing the first draft, you're like, or at least in my experience, my main goal was just to complete telling the story. So that just meant getting words on the page, and they didn't have to be my best words or my best ability. And not to say that this second draft has to be the best polished version, but I think there's a lot of room for insecurity to creep in when you are reading your work and you're reading your sentences and you think to yourself, if I'm already kind of running my mind or my creative thinking at full capacity to rework this on a plot and structure level to be the best it can be, will I have enough left in the tank to make it perfect in terms of grammar and punctuation and word choice and prose being well sorted out and all these things? And so anyway, last week I talked about how no word written is a word wasted, and that is true. And sometimes you have to write the bad words to get to the good words. But I think the insecurity piece that keeps creeping in for me is like, what if I don't have as good of a perception of what's bad and what's good as I think I do? You know? But then I remind myself that when I read other people's work, I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of good writing versus bad writing. So anyway, that's just my moment of, self-doubt that creeps in. And I think everybody probably feels this way when you do anything artistic or creative. You not only worry about like what other people are going to think of it at the end, but like what you'll think of it in the end. Hello, I'm just checking in, looking quite terribly tired, because I am, to say that I am almost done annotating this book. I was pretty MIA last week because I was annotating and kind of just having a weird week, so checking in with you guys now. I have had the goal of getting this book annotated no later than the end of August, and I am getting close to being done. I just reached part 3, which is exciting. And this book is about 340 something pages, and I'm at 273 right now. So this is where we're at with the whole sticky note thing. As you can see, there is a thin white section at the end that has no sticky notes, but the rest of it is looking quite colorful. So that's where we're at, and I'm hoping to finish it up in the next few days, which would be a week ahead of schedule, which would give me a chance to start brainstorming some things. I think there's a little bit of reworking I want to map out before I start rewriting in draft 2. Just because I've had some ideas after reading this on more of like a editor's level, and I want to have a clear plan going into rewriting. So there's a couple different scenes I know are missing, a couple different subplot things that really need strengthened, and I don't want to just head into the draft without a plan when I start revising. So I might take that week, maybe the first week of September, to really brainstorm and hammer down a plan, and then we'll head into rewrites from there. But that's where this is at, so that's my check-in. Here are the things that I want to talk to you about today that I think are useful as a first-time revising author and that you might find useful in your own project. Number one of the best things you can do for yourself as you're going through revision is to keep reading. Not just your own work, but other authors' projects as well. I have been reading things that are not actually necessarily in this genre. My book is kind of a romantasy type genre book. And so I've actually been reading a lot of just normal books that I would always read. So I just read The Scarlet Thread by Francine Rivers. Right now I'm reading Beach Read by Emily Henry. And I'm trying to diversify. I just read The Perfect Marriage not too long ago. I try to diversify what I'm intaking as a reader, just so that way I'm hearing multiple different voices and not becoming too attuned to one author's voice or one author's writing style. I think for me, this helps keep my inspiration diversified. It keeps me on my toes and keeps me feeling freshly inspired from multiple different sources. And this helps me kind of round out my own voice as a writer and not sound too much like another person or like there's no voice at all to my writing. I don't know if that makes sense. But basically my point here is don't stop reading and consuming other content when you're creating content. This is just one of the best tools that I've been able to utilize throughout this process, and I would highly recommend it. It also, on the end of like even grammar and structure and things that are more like copy editing, it's been so helpful for me to see published work that has gone through the editorial process and then review my own work and see the errors that I might have by looking at the professionals who have gone before me. Or published authors who have gone before me. So highly recommend continuing to read when you're in your revision phase for both the reasons of inspiration, well-rounded voice, and finally copy editing tools as well. So that is one tool that's been helpful for me. Another thing that has been super useful to me is realizing that not every piece of this book is going to be perfect. I knew that going into this, but I think actually spending time with my work, writing, rewriting, editing, making notes of things that are maybe going to be scrapped altogether and things that I'm completely missing and need to add into the storyline. It's been really humbling as an author and as a writer. Well, I'm not quite an author yet, but it's been humbling as a writer to kind of realize that perfect work is not the goal. My goal is to tell this story to the best of its ability, and that might not be perfect in someone else's eyes, but as long as it's adequate to my goals as a person and as a writer, then that's adequate for me. So within that, I think knowing that I'm telling this story to the best of my ability as a writer is the best that I can hope for. So that doesn't mean that every word that's on the page is going to be perfect. I mentioned in one of my recent videos that no word written is a word wasted, and that is certainly what I have learned through reading my first draft through. There's a lot of words in this book that are going to be scrapped or rewritten, but the ones I originally wrote aren't wasted because they got me to where I am now. Prior to this project, I had never completed a first draft of anything, and without writing those words and getting them down, I would never be able to hold this in my hands and be at the point that I'm at now. So just remember that when you're going through the revision phase. If there's a point where you look at your work and feel more discouraged than encouraged, that's okay and that's normal, but remember to appreciate where you were and where you're going. Something that Alyssa from her channel, Alyssa in the Books, mentioned during my live stream with Brielle is that something you should take as encouragement when you're going through the revision process and seeing things that you need to improve on is that you can now recognize that they're things you need to improve upon. When you first wrote them, you may have felt really confident in them, you may have not felt so confident, but the point is you may have not seen the flaws. You may have not seen how it wasn't strengthening your writing, but it was ultimately not going to be a component that could serve you in the end. The ability to now look at that and see the weak points and see what needs improved upon shows that you're growing as a writer. I can guarantee you, because I have experienced this myself, that where I was as a writer in these pages is not the same place I was as a writer within these last 100 pages of this book. And I think that's normal. I think it's practice makes progress, really. Practice doesn't always make perfection, but it will make progress. And writing is a craft, and just like anything else, like music or painting or drawing or film creation or anything like that, it always takes practice to get better. So I talked about in a previous video as well how the first 5 chapters of this book, I ended up shifting the whole book and making the first chapter the 5th chapter and writing 4 new chapters. So that was helpful for me because I felt like I was able to see a whole plot hole that I had in the story and write that in. But I didn't know that when I started the project. I decided to write a new 4 chapters and put my first chapter at chapter 5 when I was at like the halfway point in the book. So anyway, just a little note there. And then the last thing that I would say to keep in mind when you're going through the revision process is look back at the words or the snippets or the little pieces of dialogue, whatever it is, that during your drafting process were inspirational to you, and reread them to yourself. Sticky note them in your project or highlight them on your Google Doc or whatever you're using, and remind yourself what you love about this project. For me, that's what all these sticky notes on the top of my book are. These are little pieces of dialogue or descriptions of something that I feel are a key point to this book and a key point to what I'm headed towards with this book. When everything in this novel feels like these 4 sticky notes, I will be satisfied with the overall feel of the book. So all of these are my edits. These are my things that are my strong points that I'm returning to when I need that encouragement and that vision for the overall book. I hope that these little tidbits were helpful to you guys as I am working through this for the first time. I'm open to advice, I'm open to encouragement, I'm open to questions, all the things. So if you have any of those, please drop them down in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I am looking forward to making it to officially draft 2 with you all and working on rewrites and revisions to this project. So please stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks, bye.